The media is a weapon of mass distraction that uses flashy ads to promote consumerism, to elude from and camouflage the superficial fulfillment of humanity.
There are hundreds of TV stations, newspapers, and radio shows. But the truth is that almost every avenue from which we get our information in the mainstream media is controlled by only 6 corporations that have one specific interest: profit.
Currently, the average American spends approximately 150 hours per month watching television, the most sophisticated medium of worldwide communication. But due to this inevitable saturation of content, viewers are increasingly susceptible to the mainstream media molding their opinions and attitudes, influencing what is acceptable versus what is not. Unfortunately, by surrendering themselves to such a level of obedience, viewers allow these various corporate watchdogs to penetrate what they think, but not how to think. Aside from the avenue of television, political agendas or motives are commonly and gradually introduced through music videos and movies to subconsciously acclimate or condition its premeditated opponents. The most powerful propaganda is that which is unseen. The media fabricates something for the masses to focus on and externalize energy towards: a concept, a movement, an idea, an illusion, something to love, something to hate. Then, the masses accept it as relevant to their lifestyle and subconsciously consent to the demise of their manipulation.
John F. McManus.
We like to think, and people in the media like to think, that they're the ones that dig out the real issues and so forth. They don't. They don't dig out the real issues. There are some areas that are off limits. You're not allowed to get into those things.
Certainly, the press wouldn't dare covering the tyrannical police state, indefinite detention, genetically modified foods, and cancerous TSA body scanners.
This LA news anchor made these comments moments before reporting the verdict in the second LAPD beating trial of Rodney King.
Okay, I'm standing by, ladies and gentlemen. We don't have shit to say. We don't have anything to do, but by God, the management of this company deems it necessary that I come on the air in the morning and shock the shit out of all of you.
In just half an hour from now, the jury in the federal Rodney King beating trial will be back in session.
I said, you know, this is news. This is important. This is stuff people need to know. And I'll never forget, he didn't pause a beat, and he said, we just paid $3 billion for these television stations. We'll tell you what the news is. The news is what we say it is.
The reporters and that guy that you just played, they actually countersued against Fox under Florida's whistleblower statute. And as it turns out, under Florida law, they lost that lawsuit because it turns out it's not illegal to falsify the news.
I mean, NPR was running a story during the BP oil spill featuring a scientist that was talking about how oil was in the Gulf that would eat, bacteria that would eat the oil. It was like, well, this bacteria is just going to clean up the oil itself. We don't have to worry about anything. Turns out later, according to Greg Palast, the scientist interviewed about the story was given $500 million from BP. NPR never mentioned this detail.
If it bleeds, it leads. This cynical saying, often regarding mainstream news, implies that violent or catastrophic reports are peddled as top stories.
And the two planes collide.
Horrific or dramatic events alone create strong emotional responses. Add to that sweeping statements that stir public fear.
The police can't stop it.
Reports of war, nuclear threats, natural disasters, scandals, and murders often filled the daily news for reasons other than to inform. Preying upon fears viewers have concerning death and destruction is so frequently practiced by major news that most viewers are desensitized to the actual intent of the reports themselves. Just as global crises are trumpeted as reasons to centralize government power, the media also manipulates local events to serve that goal as well. Take, for example, the gun. It's what the media blames for an epidemic of violence in our own backyard. In almost every story having to do with violence, the presence of a gun is the villain. Tragedies such as the shootings at Columbine are exploited to convince the public that the gun itself is to be more feared than those misusing it.
The debate is just talk until gun violence happens to you.
Well, you haven't given us any specificity about where you stand on this, Senator. In the past, particularly in the House of Representatives, you voted against federal funding for abortions, and that meant for poor women.
In some circumstances.
Well, tell us the circumstances, please.
All right. The circumstances debated have involved rape and incest and life where the life of the mother is in jeopardy.
As a congressman, Al Gore voted against using federal funds for abortion. But as a vice presidential candidate, he changed his position and supported using federal funds for abortion as part of the Clinton health care plan.
That's what freedom is all about. That's what tolerance is all about. That's what our country stands for.
This is a technician at the White House hooking up with TV stations in South Carolina and Florida for a satellite tour by Barbara Bush.
Channel 4, do you read us in Washington? WYFF.
Remember that every single man, woman, and child in the state of South Carolina awakens to a freer, safer world because of George Bush.
WIS, do you hear us in Washington?
I would remind people that every single morning we all awaken to a safer, freer world because of George Bush.
WCBD, do you hear us in Washington?
And Nicole, I would remind you and the people of Florence that all of us awaken every single day to a freer, safer world because of George Bush.
Once an individual is exposed to the media for a prolonged duration of time, they are then engulfed with passivity, tempting them to take refuge in the mental security of conformism, accepting the bandwagon as pertinent to their life, standardizing human thought through authoritarian control. When the mind becomes universalized in accord with the media's Kool-Aid brainwash, it transforms into a slippery slope.